the Chainmaker series. My name is Babatunde Okunlala. Well, when we talk about Pan-Africanism, what does it really mean? These are concepts that have since made their way from the early 1900s, and we continue to grapple with them. But what does it mean for the contemporary African youth we've got today? Well, it could be as simple as not just reducing things to nationalism alone. It could be as simple as you being African and your love of the continent extending beyond your love for country to also other countries. My guest today is from Uganda, but his work, of course, has taken him not just to Uganda, it's taken him to South Sudan, as well as Uganda and, several African countries. He's a peace builder, of course, a mediator and someone who uses peace processes to broker peace on the continent. And we do know how much the continent needs this right now. My guest is Jimmy Awani. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Man, you got a beautiful name, man. I've got to say that first and foremost. Not like my name's bad in a way, okay? So don't look at me like that, okay? Jimmy, it's good to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
I'm going to hit you straight up.
Go on.
Okay, Jimmy Awani, the peace builder. I know most times we often go about with this, order of questioning.
Yeah.
But one of the things that caught my attention was you're in Uganda, you're in South Sudan, and you're also in Kenya.
Yeah.
What are you doing in all three places, man?
Well,
shouldn't you be on the spot?
Make it peace. Well, it's an interesting story. Right after I graduated from school,
Okay.
I moved into South Sudan. That was coming out of conflict at the time. Although my focus at the time, South Sudan had just gained its independence. So a lot of work at the time was mostly state building, nation building, civil society capacity strengthening. Along the way, South Sudan got engulfed in conflicts, and a lot of focus of most organizations in South Sudan changed to peace building. And when that happened, when South Sudan was engulfed with conflict in the capital, tankers everywhere, people shooting everyone everywhere, my organization decided to set up a head office in Nairobi. So that is how I moved between Nairobi, Uganda, and South Sudan. But most of our work focus is right now in South Sudan.
Because I found that really interesting. I was like, okay, like he's here. Is there like these three areas like majorly involved or like key areas when it comes to the conflict? How related are these three areas? Talking about the conflict, because then again we've noticed the changing dynamics in the continent. Whatever affects Nigeria, of course, affects Niger, affects Benin Republic, amongst a couple of other places. What's the dynamic or the relationship when it comes to the conflict and peace building process amongst the three places where you operate?
Well, Kenya and Uganda are bordering South Sudan in some ways, and they all have key stakes in the South Sudan peace process, because the conflict in South Sudan would affect the conflict and the economy of Uganda and Kenya at the same time. So both countries have key stakes in the peace process, because they know that when the market is thriving, there's a huge market for agricultural goods, for industrial goods. So South Sudan has in the past been providing a lot of market for East African goods.
Wow.
So the stability of South Sudan matters a lot to Uganda and Kenya at the same time. In the mediation process, Kenya was a key stakeholder. The president of Uganda was also a key stakeholder to the peace process. They are more like guarantors to ensure that the peace agreement is implemented as agreed.
Yeah.
And also, something of interesting to note is that around the time when the conflict was all over the place, the Ugandan government sent in its troops to South Sudan to help evacuate as many Ugandans, Kenyans, and South Sudanese as much as possible.
Man.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, man. I just had to jump right in. I know, you're supposed to build these things up. I had to jump right in. Now, the next question is, did you choose this life, or did this life choose you? Because it's really weird stuff. Oftentimes growing up and going through, the classes and everything, you have a couple of elderly people around the table, brokering peace for the common generation. There's been a lot of controversy, and, as regarding that, you're making decisions for people who oftentimes are not even offered a seat at the table of negotiating this space. And here you are, as a young person, you're right here.
Yeah.
So, did you choose this, or was it something that happened and you just felt like, I can just sit back and watch, I have to get into this?
Well, I didn't choose to be a peace builder. But then
What do you want to be?
I wanted to be a rich man with money. I wanted to have money. That is all I wanted in life. I needed to have a big house. I needed to have a big car. That's all I was thinking about. But then growing up after school, life was a bit difficult at the time. So you started looking for different opportunities. I knew for sure that I wanted to work within the humanitarian sector. I knew that I wanted to work with an NGO, but I didn't think that I would be a peace builder.
So what influenced the decision?
When I got into the context of South Sudan and looking at the conflict that happened in northern Uganda, where I grew up from, it was a demand. There was conflict going on. There was need for people to reconcile. For me, that is key to everything else. It's key to stability. For a farmer to be able to go and dig on his garden, he needs to be safe. He needs to be safe.
True.
Yeah, for me to be able to, for a young boy to be able to go to school, there is need for some peace and stability. So for me, peace is the foundation. It's the building. It's a foundation for everything. It's a foundation for economic growth. It's a foundation for politics, for governance. So I getting into that context and having experienced all these things, I felt passionate about reconciling people. I felt passionate about people relating with each other. So that is how I found myself in this space. I didn't think I would get there.
So tell me about what you do and your role as a young man in the peace, building process over there.
Well, I work with an organization called Justice Africa. Justice Africa is a Pan-African organization that seeks to strengthen civil society.
So I've got this sense or whatever. I mentioned Pan-African, like I'm good, like really, really good.
We're trying to look for African solutions for African problems. African solutions for African problems. Yeah. The work that I do we are working with community-based organizations, grassroots level peace organizations, to reconcile them from the grassroots level. Normally, when you talk to people about peace, it looks so long-winded, and it's true. When you talk about getting a solution to the South Sudan conflict or whichever conflict, when you look at it at the macro level, it looks very long-winded. It seems very long-winded. But we, as an organization, we see that and we're like, yeah, we need to build peace from the macro level, meaning from the national level peace process. But then there's also a lot of emphasis that needs to be done from the grassroots level. So my role and my work and what I'm passionate about is reconciling people from the grassroots level, because I feel that if you build peace from the foundation, if you reconcile neighbors and reconcile, these are families that have fought each other. Maybe that family killed my family. So to reconcile these people, as much as you need the top process, you also need a bottom-up approach. You also need as much as you need a top-bottom approach, you also need a bottom-up approach. So I focus on building peace from the grassroots process.
I want to ask you how you do that, like a practical case scenario of how you do that. You get a couple of people who've got guns and daggers at each other, like, dudes, peace is the answer. Don't fight. We've seen it on the music video. And you know what happens next. Hey guys, don't fight. What exactly do you do? Because again, this is us breaking it down.
Yeah. Well, think about it. I am based in the capital, but the people at the grassroots level that are fighting. I don't know their issues. I don't know their context very well. I might read it in books and all these things, but I don't know the depth and details of the conflict and the issues that those people at the grassroots level do. So what we do is empower those people in those communities to be able to build peace, even when I'm not there. Even when my resources of funding is not there, it's sustainable. So we identify community-based organizations or individual actors and work with them
in those affected places.
In those affected locations.
Nice.
We mentor them, we give them resources, we give them funding sometimes, we expose them so that first and foremost, they prevent conflicts. When they see something is happening, as in your community, you can know that something is brewing. So they're empowered to be able to prevent the escalation of conflict. So we've set up conflict early warning mechanisms that help them spot conflicts, prevent it, and when conflict actually happens, there are ways in which they can help calm things down. So they for instance, our work typically involves holding a lot of dialogues. Let people air out what their issues are. Let people talk, because that is a process of healing. Let people talk. So we support a lot of spaces for dialogue, through dialogue, people get to reconcile and agree on certain terms. So we do that from at different communities, at different states, different districts. So just promoting dialogue.
So basically, your approach is, it's your problem, you've got to fix it. We'll give you everything you need, but we're not coming in to play Big Brother here.
No.
You get to fix your problem yourselves.
Exactly.
Man, that's brilliant, man. And it's one of the things that has been said to be missing, in the African situation. I'm going to let you go very soon. But I want to ask this. What's the one misconception, or misconception, you could have two, but what's the one misconception by most people when they take a look at the South Sudan situation? Because everyone's got an opinion on what's going on. You've got international experts weighing in, but you've been on ground, you've seen this, you've experienced it.
There are many misconceptions. The one that usually comes up is that it's a simple problem. That it's a simple problem between the two politicians, the Riek Machar, the vice president, and Salva Kiir, the president. It is deeper than that. It is more complex than just two leaders fighting. It's more complex than just two ethnicities fighting. The bordering countries have stakes. The UN has stakes. The embassies and the different countries have stakes in the conflict. It's so complex. It's different people are involved. Different actors are involved. Certain families are simply protecting themselves from harm. So it is so complex and so huge. It is not something that you can just maybe, I don't know, fix here, and it's
because I was going to ask you about the one thing that you think would change the dynamics of this particular situation from what you've seen. The one thing, is there like a key figure who could get in and change this help change this dynamic, or that one factor that if this were in place, this situation has a way.
I think
it's just complex.
It's very complex, but I think one way that can get South Sudan out of conflict is the genuine national dialogue process that cuts across the country. When I say genuine, I mean genuine. There needs to be the political will for a genuine dialogue process. A dialogue process that includes everybody, that does not exclude people. A process that involves the different stakeholders, meaning those who are fighting. A process that is not influenced by Uganda's interest, that is not influenced by Kenya or Ethiopia's interest. A genuine national dialogue process that seeks to address the deep issues of the conflict, of why people are fighting. There are so many issues right now, but people need to talk. And I think the politicians need to provide the genuine space for people to dialogue. And I think we need to make compromises as well. At all levels, at individual level, as our leaders. The leaders also need to make compromises where it matters. That is one way I think South Sudan can get out of the conflict.
Okay, one question I want to ask you right now before we wrap up. There's so many questions. It's one question after the other and another one after the other. I want to ask you this because they say war is a huge business anywhere in the world. There are people who make money of war, of any unrest, or of any conflict, of any time, of any kind you could think of. When it comes to this. And the same thing, we've said that about people fueling it in. And there's also some, I was privy to a conversation recently, you might know a little about it, where, someone had the view that, sometimes the peace builders themselves get into it, not because of their passion or their genuine interests. It's more like, they also have interests, in this, because so long as, hey, if there's global peace and if there's world peace, then come on, so it's so one way or the other, it never ends. Even when it looks like it's dying down, you've got to just fan it up, And I know you're a peace builder, so I know I'm putting you on the spot right now.
True.
But you get to meet a lot of people. What's your take on that?
I'll start with a small example. On one of the occasions when the conflict in Juba started, when conflict happens, a lot of refugees, a lot of people run out of South Sudan. So there are a lot of refugees in Uganda.
All right.
So I was having a discussion with a colleague, and he was like, "Wow, South Sudan is in conflict again. That means more jobs for Ugandans. That means a lot of economic opportunities and all those things."
What does that even mean?
So it means it's just building on the point that you're making. Conflict can become a business. Some people see that as an opportunity. When there is conflict, humanitarians get a lot of funding for their organizations because they can use that to justify providing aid, healthcare, medicine. Well, they need to, there is a tendency for individuals to profit out of conflict. But it's very complex. At the level of those who are conflicting or fighting themselves, they look at it as an opportunity to then loot people, and then maybe control a certain reserve resources. There was a story about how some individual was profiting off a forest, you know. So when it happens, people start profiting at different levels.
I asked the question because oftentimes we've seen a trend. We've seen the trend of the savior complex.
Yeah.
Of they can't sort it out. They don't know how to fix themselves.
Yeah.
We have to step into the situation and step into Africa to solve it. And it's not totally true because we had our own traditional systems.
Yeah.
Every community, every part of Africa had its own. It might be complex. You had Ubuntu in East Africa, you know,
Yeah.
amongst a couple of other things. And that's why I asked the question, because oftentimes when we get our countries
Yeah.
into this situation, we leave a gap open for people to determine how they want this dynamics to play out at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so how important is it that, you know, your organization, for example, is taking this approach, let them fix their problem? How important is it that we let Africans decide what's best for them, solve their own conflicts on the one hand, and on the other hand, how well have they done a good job of doing that when we're left alone to solve it?
It is very important. Africans, let me not even look at it from the point of Africans. Let us look at it from the point of a community. People within a community know their issues better than anyone else. They know their issues in depth. They know it better than anyone else would know. But the tendency with international development is that most times a white person comes from Europe or America and then he becomes an expert in my community. How are they going to be able to solve the problem? So we need to challenge international actors and international development entirely to start valuing local knowledge, to start valuing local abilities, local context, local knowledge, because it's through that knowledge that then you can start finding solutions. It is an effort that we need to consistently do, that we need to, sometimes we forget about it as peace builders, but we need to constantly remind ourselves that, you know what, we need to recognize the local knowledge.
Well, Jimmy Awani, it's been a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you very much.
So much for giving us, sharing from your vast world of knowledge. At least I know who to go to right now if I've got any conflict of interest. I don't know if it works that way. I hope it doesn't charge me for anything. And that's the size of the program today. My name's Babachinde Okmola. I told you the journey moves on from there, and I've got a whole list of guests, like really fascinating people. You have no idea. A little bit about everything. It's time we started telling our own stories ourselves. My name's Babachinde Okmola, and that's a wrap on this edition of the Chainmakers. Who we're bringing next? You gotta tune in or, watch the space to find out. Bye for now.
Peace.